Hello, Avila Advantage students. How is everyone doing this weekend? I am Joe Barnhill. I'm going to be your instructor for microeconomics for the next 8 weeks. So we're living in some interesting times right now, but hopefully at some point things will settle down and we will get some stability to our economy. Been positive news in the stock markets, but there's still a lot of what I'd call social concerns in the United States, stability, and still with COVID-19 some uncertainty what's going to be going on in the future, that we may have some spiking going on um, as we start to ease the social distancing. So kind of big question now is what type of impact will that have to our economy and the world economy. So for this course, I will say that just if you stay on top of things, it's a very manageable course, but you don't want to wait until the weekend to do this course because you just won't be able to keep up. So it's so imperative that you stay on top of things and kind of regularly do things through the week. A little bit about the first week. What I would do is I'd ask you to go into that module, the getting started in the course resources, look over those items to kind of get an expectations of the course. I've seen many familiar names. Looks like we have about 14 in this cohort. So if you've had me before, I think you're a little bit used to the style and how I do this. And each week I will put a mini lecture out there to kind of give you some overview and insights. So those that have taken macro, this is kind of a repeat. The first week, kind of going over that chapters 1 and 2. But it's a good refresher to kind of get yourself back into it easily, to get yourself jump started again. Main thing I'd say, if you have any questions, do email me through the course in Canvas. I try to get back to you that day or the following day. I check email regularly, so do email me if you have some questions. But hopefully most part you can follow along in the course and the modules and understand the expectations each week. But some other things too, just kind of the course and the expectations. Like I said, it is, I would say it's an 8-week course, so you're trying to do everything in a 16-week course in 8 weeks, so just stay on top of things. You're going to have some of the main assignments in this course are obviously the Microeconomics Lab homework. So if you haven't registered for that, make sure to follow the directions, get started on that. All we're doing is I have assigned homework assignments. These can take some time, so that's why I want you to start early. You can do them ahead of time too. There's nothing to prevent you from going in future weeks if you want to work on some of those, if you have kind of manage your time in different ways. But just make sure they're done by the end of that week, because after that week, you can no longer assess them. So there's no late assignments in this course. So that's why it's so important to stay on top of things. And with the MyEcon Lab, you'll get as many attempts as you want to maximize your grade in that assignment. So I've had many that will, in the past, that have gotten the full points on those. So just stay on top of them. You're going to have the forum discussions, so it's important to make that post earlier in the week as opposed to waiting until the Thursday deadline, and make sure to respond to your peers. Follow the forum discussion rubric, so we want these to be robust. A lot of times let the articles or let the research write this post for you, so it's important to cite those sources. But the first week one is kind of more of an introductory post and get you kind of like your personal perspective. But I do want you interacting with your peers and interact with different peers. The important part of an online course is that interaction and discussion with your peers, because you learn from each other and I learn from you. So uh, you're going to have 2 writing assignments in the course, week 3, week 7, and then you're going to have exams on 4 and 8. And typically with the exams, what I do is I take the highest grade in the exam. I set a curve for that, and that becomes kind of the default of if somebody got like a 95, that would become 100, and I would adjust from there. So, all right, so a little bit of overview of week 1 to give you some insights with the chapter 1 and 2 and the readings. Hopefully everybody has the textbook. I think you get it electronic, but here's an example of the textbook that we're using, The Economics Today by Roger, Leroy, and Miller. So the first chapters, you really kind of look at the nature of economics. That idea of there's a limited number of resources, there's unlimited wants, discussion between micro and macro. Macro looks at the big picture, things going on in the economy right now with GDP, unemployment, inflation, and obviously with high unemployment right now, it's not as bad as some thought it might be, but it's still a concern because there's a lot of people that do not have jobs. I am even having difficulty. I run a learning center at Metropolitan Community College in Longview, and I'm not allowed to hire part-time tutors right now because of constraints and concerns about enrollment in the fall in state and government appropriations. So everyone's kind of figuring out, how do we adjust, how do we reopen for business, and these are more of the micro decisions, the individual decisions by the firm, or the decisions by individuals, your choices, whether I should be eating out. How does this impact, if I potentially did lose a job in the future? Should I be saving more? But then again, we know that in order for our economy to grow, people have to spend money too. So it's a tough trade-off right now about your decisions. Either try to help the economy or protect yourself too. So people have to make what they think are rational choices right now. And what are their behaviors in this current market or different markets? And as we'll see, um, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and there could be, as we learned in this course, that certain firms or certain industries are going to be dramatically impacted. One of those, to me, is a field that I'm in. I work in higher education, either as an adjunct at many places, or I work full time at the Metropolitan Community College. But as an example, our enrollment right now is down quite a bit because I think there's a lot of students that are uncertain about whether they want to go back to school if they're not getting that same experience. If you're going online, why do I want to pay all this, tuition? And what if there are no sports? Do I want to do this? So that there's some tough questions going on by students. Do they want to take a gap year and wait to see what happens? So obviously that impacts institutions and their ability to spend money if they have less revenue coming in, and a lot of times high fixed costs. So they're going to try to be strategic and try to figure out, how do I get through this time period to be around for the long run? But there may be some in various industries that this may be a game changer with the COVID-19 and the economy, that says, you know what, we're going to have to file for bankruptcy, or certain firms can't compete anymore. So that's what we'll be interested to see, how this is going to change things. Eventually we are going to improve and get back, but it's just a painful time period in just such unusual circumstances, because we had a period of such a long period of growth, and then all of a sudden, bam, COVID-19 hit, and that really changed things. So I would also encourage you to think about rationality. There's a term called ceteris paribus. We make assumptions about models when we look at these models in the textbook. Look at the appendix at graphish if it's been a while since you did some math. Kind of gives you an idea of the relationships between price and quantity, X and Y. We look at graphs, but a lot of textbooks will use models, and they either have positive relationships, that if one variable is moving up, the other variable is moving up. A good example of that is the supply curve. Demand curves is a negative relationship, but price goes up, quantity demand goes down. So it's just to help you think about the relationships in these models. And the last, in this chapter 1 is like the positive and normative economics. I want you to think of positive economics as something we can measure. You can measure the unemployment rate. You can look at a theory that says that if Oprah says you should reach this book, the demand curve should shift out. Okay. Normative economics, and that's a lot of what's going on, is people's opinions or value judgments about what should be done in an economy, to try to stimulate that economy, to try to improve things in the economy, what is best right now. So that you see that in a lot of the news out there, a lot of value judgments being thrown around about things, and sometimes they're just thrown out there without any evidence about whether it's right or wrong. And that's where we kind of, like in economics, we steer it back in and say, okay, what does the data say? What's the theory say? And this is the best thing to do. Chapter 2, you're going to look at the idea of scarcity, the idea of land, labor, capital, human capital, entrepreneurial capital. I think about that SpaceX. I was just watching that stuff with Elon Musk and how those rockets land back down on those ships. It just amazes me. I think about all the trials and errors that they had to go through, but some of the things we're able to do today. And that's one of the things we have to remember. Um, Even when people talk about the doom and gloom of an economy, uh, in the United States especially, we have resources, and that puts us at an advantage compared to other nations. We always have the fundamental resources of the land, other types of resources to help us with agriculture, to grow food. Not all nations in the world have this, so that's why one advantage America has over other nations is the long run, the fundamentals will always be there. It doesn't always necessarily mean that everything is distributed evenly or how we allocate those resources, but at least our nation is a much better position than some other nations that, say, for example, in Saudi Arabia and other places where they're trying to diversify their economy because they realized they were so dependent on oil for such a long time, they really didn't have other structures of business in their economy to help support it. So last thing to kind of wrap up with this, you're going to look at the idea of opportunity cost. I'll give you an example. This ties the idea of absolute advantage and comparative advantage, but absolute advantage would say that one nation could produce more goods and resources, or let's take a particular good or resources. I'll give you my example. My kids are both in high school sports. I tried to go out and buy some weightlifting equipment after COVID-19 hit. I thought I'd just run to Walmart and get some barbells for them. They were totally gone. So what that told me is that all the stuff, and I researched it, is now made in China. You would think that something that would be very heavy and expensive, still the cost would be better to make it at home, but it's not. It's all made in China. So what it says is that, oh, you know what? When producing this weightlifting equipment, it's absolutely, actually, China has a comparative advantage of producing it compared to what we can produce it here. So it says, in gaining in trades, let China produce the weightlifting equipment, those weights. In fact, you go to Walmart, a lot of the consumer goods there are made in China and other places. And America focused more on service industry. We're really good at producing movies. So it's kind of like we have a comparative advantage of doing that. So it says by engaging in trade, we can increase the consumptions of overall goods and services. But if we keep a closed economy, we're kind of limited to what you're going to look at the textbook as production possibility curve. And we have that trade-off. It's kind of that bowed out curve of the law of increasing opportunity costs. And if I shift from, the classic is the guns and butter. If I shift from guns to butter production, I'm going to have to give more guns successively each time to get fewer and fewer sticks of butter. Or if I shift from producing the vice versa the other way, I'm just going to have to sacrifice that other good too. So we have to make choices, but by engaging in trade, we can get to a point outside that production possibility curve. So, okay, so I've gone a little bit longer this week. I'll probably keep it about 10 minutes in the future video mini lectures, but I want to say I am looking forward to working with you all this summer. And again, if you have questions, send me an email, but very imperative, get into that My Econ Lab, get started on that. I saw that one person was registered, so that's good, but our course officially starts Monday, and I'll be talking online to you soon. Take care.